Welcome, everyone, to the Mixtape Podcast. As television, movies, entertainment are influenced by culture and heritages, we are here to discuss, we are here to celebrate, and we're here to represent. I am still Robert Rivera. Still me. Just what you see is what you get. Sorry.
And I'm Dani Alicea, also still. In this episode, we're talking DC, the world of DC Comics. I'm really excited to kind of jump into our beloved superheroes. Some of us are big nerds, so we're Superman fans and Batman fans and Wonder Woman fans, all the fans from the DC comic world. So we're really excited to jump in and discuss representation, misrepresentation, the goods, the bads, where we've, our first interactions with DC, all the good stuff. So, Rob, give us your quick take on this episode.
My quick take is real quick.
Okay.
It is DC needs more respect. Marvel is hogging. Marvel's hogging the industry. It's time for DC to get some respect. If the only place it can get respect is on this podcast, then so be it.
Some respect on my name. I like that. Are you going to ask what my quick take is?
So I'm joined today by Dani. There you are.
Still. Yeah.
You cut out.
Did I?
Wait, you're next to me. Okay. Dani, what is your quick take?
My quick take is I believe in the DC universe when we're talking about representation, Black, Brown, Asian, Pacific Islanders, there needs to be more growth in the DC universe. All right? However, I love what DC has given us. As I was researching for this podcast, I really grew more of an affinity for DC and what they've done, particularly for our female superheroes. So if you're familiar at all with the DC universe, with the MCU, you'll know that there is a lack of female representation. And so I applaud DC, and I specifically applaud them for giving us Wonder Woman. In a male-dominated genre, she slay all day. I just love me some Wonder Woman. So, quick take, there needs to be more, but I am grateful for what they've given us, particularly Wonder Woman.
We'll talk more about representation in DC Comics as the show goes on, but for now, let's press rewind on this episode of Mixtape. Dani, can you give us a little bit of background as it pertains to DC? Like, tell us a little bit about DC. For those that have never heard of DC before, what are we talking about?
Okay, so DC Comics was first released in 1934. For you comic book nerds and buffs, you'll know that this was about 5 years prior to Marvel's release. DC was first published under the name National Allied Publications, which, as I was looking at this, I'm like, oh my goodness, their acronym was NAP. Who wants to take a nap when they're reading? No, you want people to be engaged. So it makes sense that they rebranded in the 70s to DC Comics. It was 1977. And the inspiration for the name change came from their popular series Detective Comics DC, which featured Batman. That's a little bit about the name.
So DC Comics is Detective Comics.
Detective Comics. No redundancy there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. What's your relationship to DC Comics? Like, what has DC Comics meant to you?
Oh, this is a good one. Yeah. So I think, born in the 70s, my childhood was in the 80s. Ooh. I know I'm a viejita. I'm an old lady. My first kind of interaction was with, if you guys remember the old Batman series, where it was like the pow, bam, boom Batman with like the shark repellent on his belt, or like the odd random things that one might need in a pinch. He always seemed to have readily available. So that was my first exposure to Batman. Absolutely loved him. Loved Batman, and I loved Robin. Fast forward to 2017's Wonder Woman. Now, I really loved several of the individual films in DC. I didn't I've never really loved them as a unit. So
Fair.
I think where Marvel excels is the longevity of the storytelling and how they kind of all interweave, and it's a more consistent universe. It's not entirely consistent, but there's a lot more consistency or thought out planning. Where on the DC side, it's almost individual, standalone. They should be chapters in a book, but it really kind of feels like its own thing on a shelf, like over here and shelves over here. I love what they did with Wonder Woman. I love that she is super, she's powerful, she's dynamic. I also love the Christian Bale Batman trilogy.
Of course.
All time, not just even in the superhero genre, but just in film in general. From storytelling to thematics to casting, I think it was just absolute brilliance. So, there, as a whole, I love what they've given us. The nostalgia of Batman growing up, the Michael Keaton Batman, I absolutely loved as well. And I know this isn't a super popular opinion, but I actually like Superman.
Ooh,
so
hot take. That's a very popular opinion, I think.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, people love Superman.
Right?
Don't they?
Even
Now-
the Reeves films.
No,
I
those are the
loved.
ones that people love.
Yeah.
I think people have an issue with Man of Steel.
I had no issue with Man of Steel.
No, Man of Steel is amazing, I think.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Absolutely loved it. I mean, where I would have cast like a different Lois Lane, and
Okay.
some side characters would have
Okay.
been different, but the storyline, who they cast for
Some
Superman,
Amy Adams hate.
I love me some Amy Adams. Alien, not Alien. Arrival.
That's a great
Arrival
one.
was
That is
phenomenal.
a great movie.
She slayed.
Yes.
But as like a Lois Lane, I don't.
It didn't. You're right. I
Typically
think the
think of her
chemistry.
as-
I think there was a chemistry issue between her and Henry Cavill.
Now that you say that, that's probably like nail on the head. It just was not there. Also, Lois Lane is supposed to be like this really strong, opinionated journalist that like digs for the truth, and you don't necessarily she generally plays more of like a meek, mild, kind of sweet woman, not necessarily like a strong, bold, brave. Let
Yeah.
me get up in your face. So that's my kind of history with the DC world. How about you? What's DC meant to you over
Well,
the years?
it's similar. We're in the same generation. You probably can't tell if you're watching this that
Oh boy,
I'm the older one. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just messing around. But
he is the older one though.
I am the older one. Yes. But same. Like, I did. First of all, let me just clarify. I did not grow up in the '60s. I watched the rerun of those Batman
of course.
shows.
Yes.
And as a grown up, I recognize the brilliance of that show. It's satire.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's on purpose satire. But as a kid, it was just cool or whatever.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant show. What DC did really well was introduce me to a bunch of their characters. As a kid, I watched the cartoon The Justice League or
okay.
Super Friends or whatever it was
Yeah.
called.
Yeah.
And I was introduced to Martian Manhunter and Green Arrow and Green Lantern, Flash, all of those characters.
And they're all so cool.
They're amazing.
Yeah.
They're amazing. So as a young boy, I remember collecting the toys. I remember Christmas one year being really excited, opening up the box, and the Batmobile. There was the Batmobile in there,
Oh,
blue,
man.
like open. What do you call it? Like not a convertible, but it's like
yeah,
just
the top.
the top is open.
Yeah,
Whatever.
Yeah.
Had a little Batarang out front. So
Oh, that's so cool.
so for me, I had the little figures. I saved up. Do you remember? Did you ever do this? Like collect proof of purchase on the cereal boxes and then mail it in and get something.
Oh yeah. The QR codes or
Whatever.
whatever thing
Yeah,
on the back.
yeah, the little-
yeah.
Yeah, and they mailed Clark Kent
Oh,
like a Clark Kent
cool.
toy to me. So I was just all in. Like you, when I saw 1989 Tim Burton's Batman with Michael Keaton, that blew my mind to see kind of this rebranding of Batman in my mind. I know the comics had kind of gone there already, but I wasn't familiar. So seeing a dark and gritty Batman in this wacky, still comic book feeling world, it didn't feel realistic, but it was definitely dark. That was great. Of course, you mentioned the Dark Knight trilogy. also amazing. The old Superman movies, I remember watching that as a family. So that's all this to say that DC caught my attention as a young boy and kept feeding me these great things.
Yeah.
And so I have a bias when the DC universe started. I understand that the DC universe is weaker, and I think you nailed it when you said the continuity and the overall storytelling has not been there.
Yeah.
And the movies have not always been perfect, but there's still elements of the movies that I love because I've been following these characters since I was a kid. So to see Superman and Batman, I know the movie is flawed, but to see them in movies together was really cool.
Yeah.
So I'm not here to defend the movies to anybody who hates the DCEU movies. I'm just here to say I've loved these characters for a long time, and to see them on the big screen has been exciting. So we'll talk more, I guess, about that moving forward. But that's my relationship with them. So
I love it.
yeah.
Yeah. And going back to childhood.
Oh, I also want to say,
Yeah.
I don't even want to think about why, but yeah, I watched the Wonder Woman show as a kid.
Oh, I was just
Yeah.
gonna say, and going back to childhood, the Wonder
Linda
Woman
Carter.
show,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yep.
And you had Batman toys. I had Wonder Woman and Superman toys.
Oh,
were
nice.
like my jams.
Oh, I had a Wonder Woman as well.
So I had the whole
if
costume. And
This sounds really bad, but just bear with me. If you squeeze her legs together, she would
oh, the toy that you had.
yeah. Her arms would come up, and her bracelets would cross.
Yes.
Would cross as if she's blocking a bullet or something.
Exactly. That's exactly her motion. Oh my goodness, I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh man. All right. See you next time. Oh, we haven't talked about anything.
we just talked about childhood.
DC Love Fest here.
Yeah. I love all of the nostalgia that DC brings up. So now that we've pressed rewind, let's go ahead and press play on this episode and discuss the diversity in DC.
So Donnie, we've alluded to this already, but let's just take kind of a quick look at some of the diversity that has jumped out to us over the years concerning with the different DC shows and movies. When I talk about diversity or the lack thereof, what are some of the things that come to your mind right away?
Yeah. Well, I would say one of the glaring things is that most of our superheroes, they're white and they're men. And so what that does to brown children, or especially brown female children, is it doesn't give you an on-screen aspirational figure to be like, I want to be like that. It's there's something powerful about, as a kid, having these mammoth figures to look up to aspire to be like. There's a reason why Superman has such a strong, true north. You want kids, as these authors are writing and these artists are creating, they're wanting kids to look up to somebody that's like absolutely amazing and doing stuff that's really powerful with what they've been given. And so if you don't have these beings to look up to that look like you, have a story like you, sound like you, it becomes difficult to identify with, and those aspirational things that you hope for, you don't necessarily get because you don't see somebody that looks like you or talks like you. And what's very interesting is even when women are presented as superheroes, oftentimes they'll have a really dark and gritty past. So in the Marvel world, you think Black Widow and Gamora, and in the DC universe, think Catwoman and Harley Quinn. They're, for all intents and purposes, they're criminals. Their past is really colorful and all kind of things. But then on the other side, the dominant male white side, they're heroes fighting for the American way, very America-centric, not necessarily globe or world-centric. So I think to sum it all up, DC has done some cool things, but like I said at the top of the show, so much more that needs to be done. What's your thought here on DC's kind of diversity, what they've given us, and maybe what they should be giving us?
Yeah, I hate to sound like a copycat, but I definitely agree with that take that they have done some really cool things. What comes to mind is back in the 1960s, in the Batman television show, I remember one season we got Julie Newmar as Catwoman, and then the next season we have Eartha Kitt, and Eartha Kitt is African American. She's a singer. She was a pop, like a pop
like icon.
Yeah, and she's brought into the show, but they recast Catwoman as black with no explanation. She's just Catwoman. So that was kind of interesting as a kid, but it did, I think, what you're saying. It gave now a different demographic, and it made her character relatable to a wider audience. Cesar Romero was also the Joker, and I remember growing up that being kind of a point of pride in my family, pointing that out. So it was important. Then when you get to Tim Burton's, like when I think about the Superman movies, maybe there was diversity. I don't remember any significant diverse characters in the Christopher Reeves Superman movies. In the Tim Burton Batman movies, not a whole lot either. Interestingly enough, Harvey Dent, I was like, what is his name? Harvey Dent was played by Billy D. Williams, who was Lando Calrissian in Star Wars. So you had one black man, but when the series then was handed over to Joel Schumacher, and he made the movies Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, and in Batman Forever, Harvey Dent was in it as Two-Face, but he was recast as Tommy Lee Jones.
Right.
So there was kind of that erasure. So what was kind of set up was taken away, and I would have loved to have seen a Billy D. Williams Two-Face.
Absolutely.
What would that have looked like?
Absolutely.
I think pretty cool. And so there's that. One thing that I thought was cool was the rebranding of Aquaman. Okay. Not only did they give us a non-Peter Pan looking Aquaman.
Yes.
They gave us some eye candy. No, I'm just kidding.
You took the words right out of my mouth, Rob.
So Aquaman is casting Jason Momoa in that role was a great idea.
Genius.
And then they gave him a different kind of backstory, so he is half Polynesian. What I would have loved is for them to take a little bit of the route that Wakanda Forever took, and make give Atlantis more of a Polynesian kind of feel,
Vibe.
Pacific Islander feel, and give it some more culture rather than just he's kind of the outcast in a way. He's not fully Atlantean. He's not fully. So that part is kind of cool that he is mixed. He lives as
in two worlds, literally two
worlds.
worlds.
Yeah, as Ricky Padilla would say, like, in the hyphens.
Yes.
And in the hyphen, and then so that's kind of him, and he's trying to navigate. And in a lot of ways, he has a vested interest in the Earth, the whatever the land people, and in bringing peace underwater. So that's a cool piece there.
But it would have been cool to see some like Polynesian.
Would have been amazing.
Something, because there are separate like tribes amongst the Atlanteans, so it would have been very cool to see kind of a more Polynesian.
Yeah, totally. Right. So, this DCEU does bring about some diversity. Of course, we get the character Cyborg. We get. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Of course, the elevation of Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn plays a pretty big role.
Yeah.
In this DC, and then Birds of Prey has a pretty diverse cast itself.
Right. A lot of women.
A lot of women, and a lot of women of color.
Yeah.
So those are positive things. So I feel like it was tilted in the right direction.
Yeah.
but you can see maybe there's a little bit of holding back because there's maybe there's fear of stepping on toes if you start re-envisioning the DCEU too much.
Yeah. Well, even a film like Birds of Prey, depends on the opinion of the person that you're talking with, but some people had issues with the film because it seemed almost misrepresentative of women. So the whole thing starts with what a man did to her rather than kind of an intrinsic motivation to see a more just and beautiful and perfect world like Superman or Batman. It's like, I know what's right and I'm going to make it happen. For Harley Quinn, it's this guy drove me crazy. And so now I'm going to like just burn things and set things on fire. So for some women, it's like a very almost anti-feminist, anti-woman film. And it's like, oh, men had to have written this, or, just putting women in this place of like, oh, y'all are crazy. And that's the only thing that motivates you to actually move and do something.
Yeah, that's a tricky one because then you're messing with the actual character of Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
And that's who Harley Quinn is. And I think this is a passion project of Margot Robbie, that movie.
Oh, I'm sure.
So, but I hear you. They're also anti-heroes.
Absolutely.
So they're not, they're you're kind of rooting for them a little bit, but then you're like, they're kind of shady.
Well, I mean, Batman is the classic anti-hero. And
Vigilante, not anti-hero.
Fair.
Well, you know what? Actually,
at the end,
he's never called an anti-hero because he doesn't kill. But my guy causes a lot of destruction.
Yeah.
I mean,
and there could be death in the destruction that, we don't know what he's
no
blowing
way.
up.
There's no way. People are not dying from those cars flipping and blowing up. They're fine.
Ludicrous to think of.
And if they did die, he didn't kill them. The car crashed.
It was incidental. You're right. Absolutely. Vigilante.
I'm kidding.
Bad.
Yeah,
but it is definitely interesting to think about the storyline and the backstory that is given to our female superheroes versus our male superheroes, and what drives them to do the things that they do. Sometimes, again, can be for women, almost anti-feminist. So,
I watched I didn't watch it. I listened to a podcast. That's what you do, right? You listen. I listened to a podcast on Spotify called Batman Unleashed.
Yes.
And playing Bruce Wayne / Batman is Winston Duke. Now, Winston Duke plays M'Baku in Black Panther. Love that guy.
Yeah.
And does a great job voicing Batman in that series.
Very cool.
I get the feeling that his father, Thomas Wayne, is also played by a black person. I need to double check that. Whatever. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
Right.
But my question is this. I enjoyed that very much, but we're only listening to his voice. We're not seeing a black Batman in that.
Yes.
Do you think diversity should come in the form of race bending? In other words, changing the race to, of characters that we already know and love, like a black Superman or a black Flash or Latino or Latina Wonder Woman or something like that.
Right.
Or gender swapping. So taking characters that we know and making them female. Or should DC give voice to lesser known or brand new characters of representation in the universe? In other words, take a character that is obscure, kind of like what Marvel did with the Guardians of the Galaxy. Mm-hmm. Give us characters few people have heard of and flesh them out. I think James Gunn is a guy who loves to do that. He did that with the Suicide Squad already. Mm-hmm. Takes characters we have no idea. We have no idea who these characters were before we saw the movie. Anyway, I'm setting up the question forever, and it looks like you are ready.
I'm so ready.
You are ready.
I mean, ish.
Unleash.
Well, this is the thing. I think, especially as Americans, we love options, right? Like, if you're at the supermarket and you go down the chip aisle, it's not like a potato chip, like one thing. There's 60 different brands of different, or maybe not brands, but 60 different types of chips, and there's different flavorings.
There's the Lord's Cheeps.
So what's interesting to me is that that there's a debate. Which one should we do? And it's like, well, why don't we do them all? Why don't we do some race bending and see how a black Batman would do?
There was a black man. Wasn't there a movie called Black Man at one point?
Probably.
I have no idea what it was about, but go ahead.
Or a Puerto Rican Superman, or fill in the blank. Why not have that? And if that's not your thing, that's not your cup of tea. That's
Killer
okay.
Coqui.
Don't
Like a new character?
I like
Killer Coqui, no?
the Boricua.
Yeah.
So I think at the end of the day, I would say give me both and. Give us options, and if it's not for some, it's not for some, and if it is for others, then it is for others. This is what Michael B. Jordan has to say, who he plays Killmonger, he plays Creed in the new
He's Adonis Creed in Creed.
it's not a remake, but what is it from Rocky?
It's a spin-off.
Thank you. Spin-off from Rocky. This is what he has to say about the topic of race bending. And I quote, "It's important for people to see themselves in roles that they normally wouldn't see. What that does to the next generation, to a kid or somebody that didn't think that's something they could achieve, now they're thinking about it and dreaming about it." So to my earlier point of, all right, what's super important is that kids kind of see themselves on screen. It'd be awesome if they can see themselves in these roles of beloved characters that we've always had an affinity for. If I see a Mexican playing Wonder Woman, that is beautiful. That's incredible. And it's even on point, too, because of the dark hair, the ivory skin, and we're like Amazon's just coming out of the womb. Like, it totally makes sense. So, again, the race bending thing for me isn't as big of an issue. Now, I do know that comic book heads, people that grew up reading the comics, have fallen in love with these characters. There is an affinity for what they look like, the personalities that they have, the backstories. They're invested. So I understand for those individuals, this topic might be very one-sided. Like, no, I don't want the race bending thing. Create new characters or develop existing characters that are representative of other cultures. I will say to DC that they have failed the Latino community. While it was awesome to see a Pacific Islander like Jason Momoa in the film, or in the role of Aquaman, and seeing an Israeli woman in the role of Wonder Woman, awesome. But where are the Latinos? And I'm very excited for Blue Beetle, which we'll talk about it in just a little bit. So I think there's some effort that is being made, and there's a realization, not just in the superhero realm, but in Hollywood, that representation is important to moviegoers. For women, we're 44% of the people that go and see superhero films. So have us up there. Put us in these leading roles with great stories and great writers and amazing actors. So that's my kind of initial inkling of this race bending conversation. What's your thought?
Well, here's the thing that I appreciate about DC that Marvel doesn't do. This is what DC does better.
Oh, okay.
In the
Wow.
movies.
Let's hear it.
This is what DC does better.
Better.
Okay.
Okay.
They feel comfortable with kind of a multiverse reality, what they would call more like Elseworlds.
Oh, yes. Like Earth 2, Earth 23.
They don't even call it that. They have no intention of bringing these worlds together. They just tell a story that takes place in a whole different context. So that gives way for Ben Affleck's Batman existed in the DCEU. Outside of the DCEU, you have the Batman, with Robert Pattinson. All right, that has no connection to the DCEU. It's grounded in a more realistic way in a different universe. On top of that, you have the Joker in a completely different world. And so we're going to get Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn.
So excited.
So am I.
Yo.
That sounds great.
Oh my goodness,
I think there's
super
music in
stoked.
it too. I think we're gonna get some Harley Quinn vocals.
We better.
Yeah. Lady Gaga, great. I enjoy her in film.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I think what you pointed out earlier makes perfect sense. We can get, if let's just say in the DCEU they want to keep Batman white, they want to keep Superman. Maybe that's the place to introduce new characters of color and weave them into the story. So there are Black Green Lanterns, right? There's Jonathan. What's his name?
Oh, I forget the names, but
Stewart.
there's a black.
There's
yeah.
Jonathan Stewart or John Stewart or Jonathan Stewart, whatever.
Something like that.
John Stewart's the talk show guy. Jonathan Stewart. Of course, you have Cyborg. They can flesh him out a little bit more.
Yeah.
So they've got some characters.
Oh, they have Carl Ellis as Superman in Earth 23.
Okay.
He's Black Superman.
Okay, and you know the CW made Wally West black.
Yeah. Yep.
Listen, I know that's kind of the race bending part, but whatever.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to go out on a limb, I think it would be pretty amazing to have another, kind of an Elseworld story with a black Superman. Okay, it doesn't have to connect. Just for the sheer purpose of saying, how would audiences respond? I think people would embrace it.
100%.
I think people would embrace it, and I think it can be done. Give it maybe a more urban feel. Here's the thing with Superman. Like, he's not even from Earth. Why does he have to be a white person?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, why are we stuck on that? So that's just who he is traditionally. Yeah. But I think these Elseworld stories could give opportunity for DC to kind of experiment and kind of go off the cuff. And if it doesn't work, they just scrap it. It doesn't affect their little universe that they're creating.
Yeah, you would think in a genre where there's flying people and super-powered beings that diversity would be welcome. Like, Hulk is green. Gamora is green. There's a talking
we have green representation. You know what I'm talking about?
Like, where the brown people? Like, why is it such a thing? That's like, oh my goodness, it can't
be. Got this
be.
green privilege going on. These gringos.
That's so interesting, though, that, like, it's true. These other, like, colorful beings are accepted, but people that like, literally our neighbors are not acceptable to be cast into these roles. It's crazy.
Isn't there a joke about Zoe Saldana? Like, they always cover her up with, whether it's Avatar or Gamora. She's
poor thing. She is, like, green, blue. She's always a being and never just a woman who is super powered. Like, it's just wild to me that
let's do something about that brown. let's make it green or blue. And
you got too much going on, girl. Yeah.
Man, any other thoughts about
I know.
about this idea? I mean, to be honest with you, Donnie, like, man, I'm going to answer the question of, do I prefer new character? Well, I kind of did it already. I would like to see some new characters. I think this is why I say this. I love Batman in every iteration. Could I get sick of Batman? I'm not sure. But it would be nice maybe to give me a break from Batman every once in a while and introduce new characters so that I miss Batman and you can bring him back in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So I don't feel like every time there's a reboot, it's like, here's Batman again. I know he needs to come in at some point. He is, to me, is this a hot take? He's the greatest superhero of all time.
Ooh, that's a big hot take.
And it's not even close.
Oh, really?
It's not even close.
So he's a distant one for you.
You know what? He's number one in my books without superpowers. I would like to see you get on the top of my list without superpowers. You can't, because Batman's there.
Man, that is a toughie. My all-time favorite superhero. So you would select Batman. Woof. Ay, ay, ay.
Just say Batman.
It's too hard.
It's Batman.
It's too hard.
You know it's Batman.
Man, he's top.
You're trying
he's
to
top
create a
3.
hot take. Just say what's on your heart.
He's top 3, I think. Maybe top
He is
5
top
for
3.
sure.
He is top 3. He's number 1.
I just don't know. I mean, because you've got Superman, of course.
Okay.
I love Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Well, then if we're not just talking DC,
I know,
right? We're talking everyone.
Spider-Man's great. I get it.
Yeah, you've got Spidey, you've got Miles Morales Spidey. Then I happen to love Iron Man, and part of that could be because
That's because of Robert Downey Jr.
I think Downey Jr. did like such a fabulous job.
Agree.
Oh my goodness.
Agree. Comics though, boring. Like to me, Iron Man. I like
never
like
really
him in
read
some
the
of the
comics, so I don't even know.
Batman is just like, it doesn't matter in what iteration, he's just amazing.
Because I think, and this there's a reason why. So I think I might agree with you at Batman being number one, and it's because of Christian Bale's Batman. I think Christian Bale killed those films. Batman Begins, Dark Knight. I mean, listen. Those because of those films, he might edge out, and then I would say Wonder Woman is probably a close second.
If we're talking about TV and film, the only Batman that I didn't like were George Clooney and maybe just George Clooney. Like I think even
Val Kilmer did a thing.
I think him. Yeah, I think he did a pretty good job. I think Michael Keaton killed it.
Oh, he was awesome.
I think Christian Bale killed it. I even think Ben Affleck killed it.
He's not terrible. He's not my favorite, but he's just like
he has that look, that big brawler look. I love that. I think Robert Pattinson killed it.
Oh, you know what Ben Affleck is to me? He's a little bit too sloppy to be Batman.
He's kind of an older, you know what I mean? Like he's grizzled. It's okay.
He was just
ageism. What's going on here? What's happening?
No, it had nothing to do with age. It's just him. He's almost like a little bit sloppier of a person. I don't know. There's something about him that's just
guess what? He's good enough for J-Lo.
I mean, girl. J-Lo, if you're listening, I mean, first of all, thank you for tuning in. But secondly, I'm not hating on your male choice. But I'm just saying, for Batman, I don't know. There's just I don't know. Just a physique, maybe, is the word that I'm looking for. And I don't think Ben has it. That's just my personal take. I'm just one little human being in the world. Anyway. Moving right along, because I don't want no beef with J-Lo. Look what you did. Yeah. You put me out there. J-Lo, I love you,
She's coming at you.
I love you so much.
She's gonna at you on Twitter.
My Twitter is Rob Riv. Put me on blast.
I would be fine with J-Lo hate. Any J-Lo attention would be amazing. Like,
I don't want J-Lo.
I'm framing that tweet. Watch your back, you and your entire family. I'm gonna put that right on my wall.
This is wild.
This is what Jenny from the block.
Yeah. This is wild. I'm not okay with that. I want to be her friend, not her enemy. All right, Rob, let's look into the future. Ooh, as we press fast forward on this episode.
All right, I've got my binoculars here, focusing. Which unrepresented group of people, Donnie, would you love to see DC bring to the big screen or small screen? It's okay. Just a screen.
You already know it is Latinos. I mean, again, I think DC has very much failed the Latino population and just being so underrepresented in all, in the body of work that DC has created, that it's almost uncomfortable. Like, why in the world would Latinos be so underrepresented in the way that they are, or we are? Another underrepresented group, I would say, are Native Americans. Native Americans or First Nations people, the first people.
What would that look like? What do you when you say these groups of people? Like, give me a pitch. Like, what is this? What is this looking like?
I'm going to pitch a Native American Captain America. They were the first in the America, so they would have, this is their land, so they would have the truest, if you will, take on what America should look like, what right and wrong is. I mean, the Native American way is to live in harmony with the. They
control the elements, maybe.
Oh my goodness, absolutely.
They speak
water,
to the trees.
Fire.
They use that as kind of like communication with others. They listen to the man.
Could be
eagles, like they turn into eagles.
Oh my goodness, yes, that would be so cool. I'm all about that whole life. Yes.
One guy turns, like, he's cursed and he turns into a raccoon. He's not. The rest of his tribe turns into eagles.
Eagles and
Right.
poor guy. That would be a bummer.
It would be cool,
yeah.
to infuse.
So something like that, something along those lines of giving a beloved character, casting a native into a beloved superhero role.
I don't think we've ever mentioned. Have we mentioned this before? Like, we go way back.
Oh, you and I?
Yeah.
I'm sure we have in different episodes.
We go way back, and some of the way back is
like decades way back.
yeah, going on ministry trips to Native American context.
Yes.
And forming friendships, ministering alongside of, learning from.
Oh my gosh, living, loving.
Yeah.
Yeah, and learning. I remember showing up for the first time, like going down to Oklahoma, and I thought Native Americans lived in teepees to that day. And I was in high school, maybe 14, 15. So I was younger, but so ignorant. And I was like, oh, they wear Nikes and jeans and T-shirts just like me. Like, they're just normal people.
The Hoopers.
Who knew?
Yeah. I did not go all the way back. Our way back is like young adults. But anyway, you were going there far before, longer than I had.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely.
So it is a very interesting, because it's a culture I think that we both have just affinity for, a love for, admiration of, gratitude for. Like, we love Native culture, and so to see such a glaring absence in the superhero realm for people that were here long before any of us were is, again, I think a failure. And I would throw Marvel under the bus here as well. Like, they have failed, DC has failed, and we have failed the Native American culture.
DC and Marvel, you have failed this city.
You have failed.
Is that Green Arrow?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just thinking about the Bible, Revelation, and is it chapter 7? I forget, where it talks about the multitude, people from every tribe and tongue and nation worshiping. And I understand, like, when I read the Bible, I understand, like, this is actually God's plan, and his intention is unity across nations. It's not to be segregated. That's a colonial concept. That's not a biblical concept.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And so I think even what I love when I see DC branching out, and I hope they do more as we're talking, this is kind of like the heart of God to bring in people and give voice to people who don't have a voice. I would love to see, I was thinking about this, maybe like you go back in time to the Taino people, and there's a group of people who had special powers of some sort, and although the tribe was kind of done away with in this world, their blood passes on, and there are Boricuas in this world right now with that secret power, and there's like a society, not like, kind of like X-Men maybe or something, but they have the power of the Taino or something.
Ooh, I like that.
So to bring kind of like that history, and so as you see Puerto Rico kind of diminished in the world, you recognize that there's still kind of a small group of people who are powerful and want to keep the preservation of the world. Or you know what? No, they're the keep. You know what? I have a better idea.
Okay,
they're the keepers of like the Caribbean, and there are these people all around the world, different ethnic groups, and they are keeping forces at bay. You know, maybe there's creatures underwater or in the mountains or in the forest, and
kind of like,
that's just off the cuff. Sorry.
I like it. It's kind of like Wakanda Forever, the Namor character, and all the kind of, I forget if they're Aztec or Mayan, but that kind of that vibe. But for Puerto Ricans with the Taino influence, that would be very cool. Like, the opportunities are endless, and especially kind of like you said earlier in the show, because there are so many different universes or pockets of stories, man, DC can take it and run with that flexibility to introduce these newer characters or develop interesting individual. Again, this is across the superhero, the comic culture. Like, all of these organizations should be looking at developing and creating more.
Are you thinking what I'm thinking?
What are you thinking?
Pitch our
All
ideas to them.
That would be very interesting.
Well, DC has some stuff on the docket. We kind of hinted at some of that already.
Yes.
What DC project has you most excited as you look ahead, putting on those binoculars? I said, about to say binoculars again.
Binoculars.
The binoculars.
You already know. I'm so excited for Blue Beetle. So, harkening back throughout the show, Latinos need representation as superheroes. Watching the trailer, one of the things that I really loved was the emphasis on family. And, it's only a couple minutes, but you can already tell that there's family integrated throughout the film. And for me in my life, my family is hugely important. Rob, I know that's the same for you, the same for our producer, Rich. Like, we're very family-oriented people. And so I was like, oh, my goodness, I love that element so incredibly much. Also, the star of the show, Xolo Maridueña, he is from Netflix's Cobra Kai. And so I actually really love the show. I liked Karate Kid, as a teenager when the films came out. Mm-hmm. So having a follow-up show about the, kind of what happened with Johnny and, it's just awesome. So seeing him in that show and then now as Blue Beetle, I'm looking forward to it. Rob, what are you looking forward to?
Definitely. I'm the same as you, but I'm just going to go a little bit kind of off topic a little bit in terms of the diversity. Mm-hmm. I'm really looking forward to the Flash movie. I'm really interested in that movie. Bringing back Michael Keaton. Yeah. And as we talked about in our rewind, Michael Keaton is very instrumental in my love for Batman. And so bringing him,
I would say same.
Yeah. So bringing him back, I'm excited about that. Yeah. Here's the weird thing: DC is now kind of partly under the vision of James Gunn, who brought Guardians of the Galaxy to life, and he's responsible for the Suicide Squad and also Peacemaker, the show with John Cena. And so he has some vision. He's very creative, but that means that the current DCEU that we are familiar with will end after Aquaman 2 in December. So I'm excited for after December, just seeing where the DCEU goes. I hope Blue Beetle's a part of that because Blue Beetle comes out this year, right?
Yeah.
So I hope he's in the plans moving forward. That this is not he's part of this old DCEU and then they wipe him out. Like I don't want them going backwards in this relaunch. I want to see diversity. I want to see the America that I see when I step out the door.
And you know what? The America that they see when they step outside their doors might look very much like this white male dominated artistic form that they've given us so far. So, I mean, we need new writers. We need new creators. We need new artists. We need new.
Say less.
All right,
Let's do it.
Let's go. I mean, not me, but y'all.
Oh, it is time to press pause, like Selah, just breathe, and reflect on points that have stuck out to us or takeaways.
I like it.
So let's press pause on this episode. Dani, what are your final thoughts on this topic?
So comics, a uniquely American art form, are a powerful artistic medium. I hope a new generation of comic book writers and artists create new characters or new storylines to beloved characters. There is a responsibility to tell great stories that represent our beautiful country filled with wonderful and diverse people. That's my final thought here. Rob, what's your thought?
Mine is DC was once in a place of power. They've fallen from grace, but perhaps with this new regime, DC will take their rightful place as the king of comics.
Oh my goodness. I
Well.
would absolutely. I mean, technically, they were first on. You know, like they beat Marvel by 5 years.
Did they?
Yeah,
Oh,
to the
look at that.
superhero world. Like they were first. So it would be great to see them back on.
I do. I love both DC and
100%. But if you look at like the top superheroes,
They're Batman.
It's the top, yes, Batman. But then if you also look at Superman, like what in the world? How in the world is DC not dominating? So
Exactly.
I 100% agree.
No, I think my takeaway from all of this is there's a lot to celebrate in what DC has done, but I want to wait and see this next this next phase, and I hope we get a lot more representation. As you mentioned before, 44% of women go to the theaters, and I don't have the stats on
Go to the theaters to see superhero movies.
Superhero movies.
Specifically.
Okay.
Yeah.
and I don't have the stats on different ethnic groups, but I know that when I go see these movies, I see a diverse group of people. So if that's who's interested in the movies, it only makes sense to give a voice to those people on the big screen.
Absolutely. Well, it is that time in the show where we press stop. So thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Mixed Take. Join us next time as we continue this journey in the far stretches of the universe. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us 5 stars on Apple Podcast or wherever you tune in. And also head over to world.spoken.com, a site preparing the Mestizo Church for cultural change, where you'll find information on consulting services, thought-provoking blog posts, and other great podcasts such as The Feature, Questions from the Pew, La Ventanita, the Mestizo podcast, the show for the mixed people of the mixed church. Also, head over to world.spoken.com and order some cool merch.
Church merch, I love. Oh man, you're flowing. Go ahead, keep going.
My recommendations would probably be a hoodie. It's one of my favorites.
My goodness,
What?
it's like a pajama.
It is it's so
Like when
soft,
oh my god,
buttery.
it's
pretty wonderful.
it is so comfortable.
Yes.
I'm not just saying that. That is 100% my
It's buttery.
buttery. Also, you can follow us on Instagram at Mixtake. We're also on what's the one that our parents are on?
Oh, Facebook.
Facebook.
Yeah,
We're also on
yeah.
Facebook. You can also follow me on Twitter at RobRiv and follow Donnie at,
Donnie Jack.
how do you spell that?
DONIJAC.
Nice. Well, special thanks to the man behind the scenes helping us troubleshoot all of our technology problems,
Richie.
Rich Hurtado. Special thanks to Emmanuel Padilla. I don't know why I can't say his name right now. And the whole World Outspoken crew. We hope you join us again as we continue to dive into the nerdiest realm, the nerdiest part of the world of culture, influence, and entertainment. And until next time, cut.
It's a wrap.